chlorofluorocarbons, and methyl bromide is contributing to the depletion of the ozone layer. Your graduation gift from the baby boom generation is a lower quality of life because of our unsustainable use of natural resources and our unsustainable spending. My generation presents you with a massive government debt that's growing at a rate of $1 million per minute and will reach $10 trillion very soon, which isn't really such a big number when compared to unfunded Medicare liabilities, which are about $30 trillion, and unfunded Social Security liability, which hovers around $12 trillion. These liabilities, along with our baby boom demographics, will assure that your generation gets no Social Security or Medicare benefits. Sorry, there will be no government support for your twilight years. But that's your problem. My generation welcomes you to a polarized world in which half the population lives on less than $2 a day, and 60% of the global population lives on only 6% of global income. It's a world where 1 billion people live balanced on the knife edge of starvation. Our legacy to you, class of 2008, is a planet in which 25% of all human deaths are from malaria, tuberculosis, AIDS, and waterborne pathogens, all preventable pathologies. Life-saving essential medicines, of course, are unavailable because they're too expensive or because pharma companies don't devote money to R&D for priority tropical diseases. 85% of the world's population has absolutely no access to medicines. And our nation, with the biggest and freest markets, fails to provide health care to 1/5 of its population. No one from my generation should be saying anything to you, class of 2008, except that we apologize for the catastrophe that you are inheriting from us. You don't need me to give you a challenge. It awaits you and will engulf your lives. The new millennium began with a great dream. World leaders gathered at the UN in the year 2000 and adopted a goal to reduce poverty by half by 2015. Never in human history had such a goal been adopted by the world of nations. But then came 9/11 and the Iraq War. More than $850 billion has been spent to date on the Iraq War. Nobel Prize-winning economist Joe Stiglitz estimates that the true cost of the Iraq War will be at least $3 trillion and could surpass the cost of World War II. Who will pay for all of this? The class of 2008 will not leave this campus for a peaceful world. Peace should be understood in a humanitarian fashion, in a broad social, political, and economic fashion. Peace is always threatened by unjust social and political orders, by the absence of democracy, by environmental degradation, and by the absence of human rights. Poverty is the absence of all human rights. The frustrations and anger generated by abject poverty cannot sustain peace in any society. For building peace, we must find ways to provide opportunities for all people to live decent lives. We accept the fact that we will always have poor people around us, that poverty is part of human destiny, and this is precisely why more than half the world's population lives in poverty. If we believe that poverty is unacceptable and that it should belong in no civilized society, we would have built institutions and policies to create a poverty-free nation and a poverty-free world. Poverty is not created by poor people. It has been created and sustained by political economies that we have designed for ourselves. The institutions and concepts that make up that system, the policies that we pursue, the policies that you will pursue during your lifetimes. What you want and how you get to it depends on your mindset. You become the mindset that you wish to have, and then create the world in accordance with your mindset. Once they're formed, it's extremely difficult to change mindsets. You must invent ways to change your perspective and reconfigure your mindsets. Class of 2008, you can transform our world if you can transform your mindsets. It's time. It's time to consider yourselves citizens of the world. Think about it, the widespread effects your actions can potentially have, how far your emails and text messages can be transmitted in an instant, how your blogs and your YouTube videos can reach a global audience. That's the world you live in, small, fast, and sometimes dangerous. It's time, class of 2008, to strive for the kind of understanding that can only come from looking at the world through someone else's eyes. See beyond your closely held beliefs so that you can empathize with others. So, all of this having been said, I will offer you a challenge. I will not challenge you to forsake jobs and money and credit cards and ignore your student loans and go off to the third world to teach starving people how to survive. I will not challenge you to become productive citizens, to vote properly, to run for office, to enjoy paying taxes, and in general to build a better society. I will not challenge you to move mountains. Few of us can transcend the limitations that define our lives. Instead, class of 2008, I challenge you not to be indifferent. Indifference is a removal of oneself from engagement and involvement. Maybe it's necessary at times to be indifferent, simply to keep one's sanity, to live normally, to enjoy a good meal as the world around us experiences genocide in Darfur, repression in Tibet, mass death in the Congo, and all of the other harrowing upheavals that define the world that we live in. Of course, indifference can be tempting. More than that, indifference can be seductive. It's so much easier to look away from victims. It's so much easier to avoid interruptions to our work, to our lives, to our dreams. It's, after all, distracting and rather irritating to be aware of and involved in the pain and despair of others. Yet, for the person who is indifferent, his or her neighbors are of no consequence and therefore their lives are meaningless. Their anguish is of no interest. Indifference reduces the suffering person to an abstraction. Indifference evokes no response. Indifference is a retreat. And therefore, indifference is always the friend of the enemy. It benefits the aggressor, never the victim. The starving, the homeless, the political prisoners, the survivors of genocide and plague. To avoid concern for their situations is to banish them from memory. And in denying their humanity, we betray our own. So I challenge you, class of 2008, I challenge you not to be indifferent to the social, political, and medical conditions that result daily in human suffering of a magnitude that is barely comprehensible. I challenge you not to be indifferent to the irreversible degradation of your environment. I challenge you to know your world, to care about the consequences of your actions. I challenge you to change your mindset to one of engaged awareness. I challenge you, class of 2008, not to be indifferent. Thank you.